Conversations with Ishiekwene.
On the 18th of August 2025, 8 European leaders gathered in the White House to discuss the Russian-Ukraine war along with US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The summit was convened as a follow-up to Trump's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the 15th of August. The European leaders present included the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Prime Minister of Italy, President of France, German Chancellor, the President of Finland, President of the European Commission, and the Secretary General of NATO. The meeting focused on Ukraine's security guarantees inspired by NATO's collective defense principle, ongoing military and financial support to Ukraine, and efforts to negotiate a peace agreement. Trump also mentioned plans to arrange a future meeting between Putin and Zelensky. Welcome to Conversation with Azul, our weekly diary on life and politics. Our column today is titled Putin as the President's Medicine. As usual, one of Nigeria's best in the science and art of column writing, Mr. Azul Ishiekwene, is with me and made an entry on his diary on this week's event at the White House and is here to take some questions. You're welcome, Azul.
Thanks for having me again, Julius. A pleasure to be here.
So we dive in straight. Your headline claims that Putin has DJ Trump wrapped around his little finger. And does it presuppose that the strong man that Trump presumes to be is maybe just a facade?
Trump is a very complex. We average, of course, we are all complex human beings. Human beings are generally complex, but Trump is exceptionally complex, isn't he? And he has shown an affection for the strong man, right? The vanity of the strong man. And it's not something that is just starting today. There are people who have tried to nail it to his upbringing and the relationship he had with his father and the relationship he had growing up and so forth and so on. But we have seen both in his first and second coming that Trump really does have strong affection for strong man. You remember that one of the big issues when he in his first time was the meeting that he tried to have with the North Korean president at that time.
He calls the rocket man.
The one he used to call the rocket man. And then there was all the back and forth, which actually was sound and fury, signifying nothing at the end of the day. This same affection obviously also has for Xi, the Chinese leader, and obviously for Putin, who has been around the stage for a very, very long time. And he hasn't made much secret of his affection for Putin.
You noted in your column that President Donald Trump is transactional by default.
Yes.
Would it be playing Russia to play Ukraine or vice versa? Or is he really interested in ending this war that has gone on for nearly 3 years?
Well, remember that one of the promises he made was that he would end this war on, to quote him, day one. He's already in his 7th month in office. Well, obviously the war is nowhere close to ending. Not even a ceasefire has been agreed. So it's far more complex, obviously, than he thought it would be. And then most of the world suspected it would be for all kinds of reasons. It's a very deep and complex issue. All of that region used to be part of what was called back then, part of the sphere of influence of the USSR, and quite rightly remains the sphere of influence of Russia, even if it's in its diminished state. And Russia feels encircled. It feels encircled and feels hard done by, especially considering the agreement that it had with some European leaders back in the day, that some of what is happening today would not happen. So it's not cut and dried, but very, very complex issue, which Trump obviously has found that it's far more difficult to untangle, and or even to get both parties to sit at the table to negotiate than he thought would be the case.
Oh, thank you very much. NATO has this collective defense part, and we during this summit we had phrases like boots on the ground. Now, do you think the European Union and NATO were in the White House to prevent a trade-off between Trump and Putin?
Well, I think the Europeans knew that it would be dangerous for Trump and Putin to have a one-on-one, and they did everything possible to make sure that that did not happen. Because if you left Putin and Trump in a room by themselves on a matter like this, you never know the sort of outcome that produce. So as much as possible, I think what they tried to do was to keep him on a leash, to avoid a situation where you know the Ukrainians will not feel sold down the river by Trump by some kind of agreement that will not favor them. But I think much of the conversation also has centered on a particular phrase: security guarantees or security guarantee. Now, but again, understandably, Europe has looked at security guarantee more from the Ukrainian perspective. But it will be interesting to look at what security guarantee also means from the point of view of Russia, because these are the two parties in the conflict, and both parties have to feel a certain sense of comfort and security before we can have anything close to lasting peace.
We'll take a break from the question and answer session as I read you an excerpt from Azu's column. Just take a listen, and I quote: "The biggest enigma across many Western capitals is why US President Donald Trump, the leader of the free world, is eager to embody everything that the West despises about Putin. Trump is enamored with Putin. His admiration for the Russian president was once again evident during their August 15 meeting in Alaska." End of quote. So, seeing those European leaders, file into the White House one after the other, must have given, Trump this illusion of making America great again, like some kind of reality. Um, that much was indicated in the press conference hosted by the White House press secretary after the meeting. What do you think about all of this? Because he kept blaming the Russia war and even calling it Joe Biden's war and stuff like that.
Well, I think that that's convenient to say, but what has happened in the last 3 years is obviously far more complex than just dumping it on Joe Biden's door, or calling it his war, or hoping that peace would be achieved by dumping the responsibility for peace either on Zelensky's door or at Putin's door. It has to be negotiated. And as I said in my column, also one of the most accomplished diplomats in Europe, Talleyrand, I think that the Europeans felt that they needed to borrow from his skill and from the guile of Churchill to sort of bring the parties in this dispute, especially to try and find an outcome that serves both parties. But Europe obviously is leaning more towards
Ukraine.
Because he believes that Putin went out on a land grab, and if Putin was not stopped, he probably will not stop in Ukraine. He will take more territories. But I think the Russians, or Putin specifically, has stated the terms as far as he desires for there to be some sort of lasting peace, and Ukrainians have also. But there has to be some sort of common ground. I do not think that we would. This matter will be resolved by either party insisting on. When you go to negotiations, you sort of take maximum positions, but there has to be some sort of compromise. I do not foresee a resolution that returns Russia to the pre 3-year conflict borders. That's very, very unlikely, or one that, as I said, that a security guarantee that does not firmly close the door to the potential of Ukraine
losing territory.
Yeah, no, of Ukraine joining NATO in future. So I think the Ukrainians have suffered a lot. Both sides have obviously taken very, very severe hits in human casualties, and children and women and innocent people have suffered and died on both sides. Soldiers, of course. I think that it's about time, really. You see, in conflicts, especially when you go into a war, there has to be. So territories are acquired either by conquest or by treaties. So those are basically the ways that this sort of thing happens. And I do hope that both sides will find an accommodation that realizes that it is not going to be the 3 year ago sort of borders or situation that will exist.
There has basically to be saying that Ukraine is not going to remain the same.
No, it will not. Exactly. Yeah, that's a reality that both parties.
Like a double alternative.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah, that's the sort of trade-off. They have to come to some sort of trade-off. Otherwise, they'll be to it.
All right. Let me take you away from the Russia-Ukraine thing and back to your previous column. Yesterday, it was in the news and up to this morning that Atiku's son-in-law has been arrested by the EFCC for financial crimes. And are you considering a follow-up too? Because of the
reaction? Well, yes. And then, in fact, in the piece for today, there's also a sidebar that to still on the matter of Bayo-Julari. There really is an update to the update that you just referred to. I understand very reliable sources told me that Bayo-Julari has left also for Brazil. To see whether he can get a meeting with the president. I do not think he's been able to see the president since all of this thing started. So he's gone there to see whether he can have a meeting with the president. I think there's still so much more that the public does not know about what is going on.
It's so urgent, he can't wait for the president to return.
I'm not sure that he wants to wait for that to happen. There's still a lot that the public, and I must say, by the way, that I was more than surprised when he said that the Pengassan event the other day, that it sort of made it look like it's no longer fashionable for the refineries not to be sold. I don't know why he said a thing like that. He's going down the path, unfortunately, that his predecessors went, that dragged Nigeria into endless pit hole of putting trillions of dollars, the last of all being 1.5 trillion for the repair of the refineries that came to nothing. I'll be shocked and appalled if that's the way he also wants to go. But I hope not. There'll be more.
All right. There'll be more on this. So stay tuned. And if you want to get the full gist of what we've been talking about, go to azuishiekwene.com, where you can read up everything you want. And like I said the last time, if you want our newsletter, you can also leave us your email address on the comment section. Thanks for coming on the show, Azu.
Thanks for having me.
Bye for now.
Conversations with Azu Ishiekwene.